I just know you're ready to hear about a little crime. Welcome to Crime Daddies.
Warning, this podcast is hosted by two true crime dads that will talk about murder, drugs, rape, and offenses against children. We may crack jokes and make light of something so terrible that has happened, but it will never be about the victim or the victim's family. You have been warned.
And welcome back to the podcast, everybody. My name is Jacob.
And I am Hunter.
And we are your crime daddies, and we are so happy to have you guys back for another case. You are some troopers. You tag along every week, and it's so cool to just have the same people and even new people come back time and time again just to hear our stories.
Last week, we gave you all a break, but this week, we're bringing the crazy again.
Yeah, we're back into the dark and scary and macabre and the stuff that just pisses you off. I mean, obviously, whenever anybody dies, it just makes you a little angry, but we'll try and sprinkle some of those cases every once in a while where someone doesn't have to get shot, stabbed, or decapitated or strangled or all that crazy shit. So without further ado, I think Hunter is going to bring us an episode today.
All right, everybody. This is a case that I recently heard about, and it blew my mind that I never knew this happened. And this is a town that is very close to Jacob and I. It definitely represents SEMO. It definitely represents the Boot Hill. And believe it or not, my mom actually went to school here until high school, and my grandparents are both retired teachers from this town.
And it is like 5 miles away from where I live. Like, it's just right down the road.
So without further ado, I'm going to get into it, and you're going to find out exactly what I'm talking about. Before the headlines, before the courtroom testimony, before Malden, Missouri became associated with one of Southeast Missouri's most disturbing murder cases, there was a town. Ordinary, quiet, unassuming. A place you might drive through without ever realizing how much history sits beneath the surface. But like so many towns in America, what looks peaceful on the outside often hides a deeper story. Malden, Missouri sits in the northeast corner of Dunklin County in the state's rural Boot Hill region. At the crossroads of Missouri Route 25 and U.S. Route 62, it is, on paper, just another small American city. A population of just over 3,700 people as of the 2020 census. But geography alone doesn't tell the full story of a place, because Malden isn't just a dot on a map. It's a town shaped by railroads, weather, history, and the kind of isolation that defines much of rural Missouri. Malden was first plotted in 1877 during a time when railroads were expanding across the American Midwest. Some say the town was named after a local county judge. Others trace its name to Malden, Massachusetts, an early example of how settlers carried pieces into their past into new frontiers. By 1877, a post office was established, anchoring the community to the growing network of American expansion. For decades, Malden developed like many small railroad towns, slowly, steadily, quietly. Malden sits within Missouri's Boot Hill, a region known for its flat farmland, dense humidity, and vulnerability to severe weather. It is also part of a geologically active area near the New Madrid seismic zone. This is a place where the land itself has history of instability, earthquakes, flooding, and tornadoes, natural forces that shape both the landscape and the people who live on it. On February 24, 2018, Malden experienced one of the most violent weather events in modern history. An EF2 tornado tracked nearly 40 miles before cutting into the southern edge of the city. Mobile homes were destroyed, structures collapsed under winds reaching over 100 miles per hour. Lives were lost in the region, others were injured. And although the tornado was part of a large weather system moving through Arkansas and Missouri, for Malden, it became a defining moment of destruction. A reminder that in the Boot Hill, the sky can turn in an instant. On the surface, Malden is a quiet Midwestern town, but like many small cities, it exists under pressure that aren't always visible. Economic limits, rural isolation, tight-knit social networks where everyone knows everyone. Places like this don't often make national headlines until they do. And when they do, it is usually because something has gone very wrong. Despite its challenges, Malden has produced notable figures in music, sports, and entertainment. There is a famous country music star whose name was Narvel Phelps, and another country music star named George Ritchie, and he was a songwriter and producer and fifth husband of manager Tammy Wynette. There's also a famous NFL athlete from Malden whose name was Derland Moore. He was an NFL lineman from 1973 to 1986, and he played for the New Orleans Saints and the New York Jets. And there was also a famous pitcher whose name was Hub Pruitt, and he was a major league pitcher from 1922 to 1932. He played on the St. Louis Browns at the time, the Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Giants, and the Boston Braves. These kind of names reflect a community larger than size suggests, because small towns are never just small towns. They are ecosystems of ambition, struggle, and survival. When people hear about crimes that happen in places like Malden, they often focus only on the case itself, the victim, the accused, the timeline of events. But understanding a place adds another layer, because crime don't just happen in isolation. They happen in homes, streets, and towns shaped by their environment, by history, by pressure, by the quiet realities no headline can fully capture. And we're going to jump right into the crime. So, in the quiet darkness of a Missouri Boot Hill spring night, music was playing loud enough to shake the walls of a small apartment. Hard rock, distorted guitars, a steady, indifferent beat. Inside, something unthinkable was happening. By morning, 2 people would be dead, and a town that rarely saw violence would never be the same again. Malden, Missouri, 1981. A small town where life moves slowly. Church announcements, school news, local festivals. The kind of place where tragedy feels distant until it arrives all at once. On May 31st, 1981, that illusion shattered. Inside a modest apartment, a mother and her child were killed in a case that would become one of the most disturbing murders in Southeast Missouri history. The case would later be known as the State versus Mark Anthony Brown. It began like any other Sunday, warm air hanging over the boot hill, windows open, neighbors going about their lives. But behind one apartment door, something was already wrong. Music blasted from inside, loud, relentless, drowning out everything else. And within those walls, investigators would later piece together a timeline that defied comprehension. 18-year-old Mark Anthony Brown lived in the apartment with his girlfriend, 28-year-old Janet Sue Johnson, and her 7-year-old daughter. At some point during that night, something snapped. According to court testimony and later recorded confession, Brown attacked Janet Johnson inside the apartment while she exercised on the living room floor. An axe was used. The violence was swift and irreversible. Afterward, Brown reportedly moved her body into the bedroom closet and then waited.
I'm sorry, you said an axe?
An axe. Like one of the most brutal weapons to use.
Who the hell thinks to use an axe?
I mean, that weapon's been used a lot in different crimes.
Yeah, it has.
But it is just so brutal. Like,
it is.
I've chopped wood, and I couldn't imagine using that same tool on another human being.
On a human, because those things, I'm telling you, they do some damage. Like Hunter said, I've chopped wood. I remember whenever I lived in Doniphan, we had a huge fireplace in our house, and like once a week, some dudes would come drop off a load of wood, and me and my brother's job was to go outside in the cold, and we would take turns chopping it to see who could chop it faster. And those things, those axes, I couldn't imagine, like Hunter said, doing that to a human. That just is rough. Not only does it cut and slice, but it's so heavy that it damages and bruises and crushes, and good Lord.
The 7-year-old had not been present during the first attack. When she returned, she walked into a scene that investigators would later describe as carefully staged. Brown told her to lie down. He placed a mattress over the bloodied area of the floor, and inside that apartment, still filled with the sound of music, he killed her.
The 7-year-old?
Yes.
God.
Dude's a piece of shit.
Yeah, good Lord.
Later, in a taped statement played in court, Brown spoke with chilling detachment. He described the aftermath, the silence, the movements through the apartment. At one point, he admitted placing Janet Johnson's body in the closet after ensuring she was dead. Investigators said the confession left the courtroom stunned, not just because of what was said, but because of how calmly it was said.
Oh, dude, what a monster.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of stories where I hear them and I'm like, not that I understand it, but the moment you take it to a kid, for some reason, it just, I don't know, it hits harder. Probably because kids are just so innocent, and full of life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I could never take someone's life, but if it comes to my wife or kids, I'll go spend my life in prison or I'll sit in that electric chair.
You're right.
After the killings, Brown did not immediately flee. Instead, he remained in the apartment. Investigators testified he smoked marijuana while the bodies were still inside. Throughout the night, loud rock music continued playing, AC/DC echoing through all the rooms, a soundtrack to violence that would later become one of the most disturbing details of the case. See, this is why back in the 80s, when all this hair metal and heavy metal was out, everybody thought it was devil worshiping music. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's no different than today. All these kids listening to quote unquote drill rap, where
Yeah.
the only thing people do is talk about killing each other.
Right. There's two ways people go about life after they commit something crazy, and it's either they freak out and they go on the run and they just keep reoffending, or you're like this guy and you just act as everything's normal. Just throw on some AC/DC and you smoke a joint. It's wild how you can just sit there and know you did that, but just go about life and listen to your favorite music. And it's so mind boggling.
Brown later attempted to take his own life. Wish he would have.
Right.
First by cutting his wrist, then by ingesting amphetamines. He survived, unfortunately. According to testimony, he had intended to die there. Instead, he surrendered. He handed over the apartment key to law enforcement and waited. Inside the apartment, officers made the discovery that would define the case forever. As the case moved forward, Malden and the surrounding Boot Hill watched closely. Newspaper headlines tracked every development, and some of them had headlines like Mother and Daughter Slain, Youth Charged with Capital Murder, Conviction and Double Killing. Brown waived a jury trial. He appeared in court in jeans and a headband, purportedly emotionless as evidence was presented. Psychiatrists described him as withdrawn, unstable, and deeply influenced by drugs, isolation, and disturbing fascinations with the occult and violent imagery. The defense argued he was not criminally responsible due to mental illness. The prosecution disagreed. On August 24, 1982, the judge delivered the decision, guilty. Capital murder in the death of Sabrina Johnson and second-degree murder in the death of her 7-year-old daughter. Brown was sentenced to life imprisonment with additional restrictions ensuring decades behind bars. The Missouri Court of Appeals later upheld the ruling, citing overwhelming evidence. In Malden, the case never fully disappeared. The newspapers that once printed church announcements now carry courtroom transcripts beside advertisements for used cars and local diners. Life and horror sharing the same page. For residents, it became one of those cases spoken about quietly, years later, in half-finished sentences and long silences. A mother and child gone. A young man transformed into a name in court records, and a town left to carry the weight of it. Janet Sue Johnson and her daughter relate to Russ and Kennett. Their names remain part of local memory, still spoken by those who remember the case. Mark Anthony Brown's later fate has been inconsistently reported, adding a final layer of uncertainty to an already unsettling story. But in Malden, the impact is clear. Some crimes don't fade. They settle into a place. They become part of its history. In 1981, in a small Missouri apartment, a night of music became something else entirely. And in the Boot Hill, the silence afterward lasted far longer than the sound ever did. This was the axe killings committed by Mark Anthony Brown, and it remains one of Malden's darkest nights.
I just can't get over the fact that this guy, one, used the weapon he used, but decided to take not only a mom, but a daughter out of this world as well. two young, innocent people that just probably didn't know that this guy could get to be this way, right? I'm sure there might not have been much indication to her that he could hurt her, especially hurt her daughter. And here he is, chopping him up with an axe, listening to AC/DC, getting stoned, being an idiot and not knowing how to take his own life. I
Well,
wish he would have taken that axe to his own head.
he's for sure on the highway to hell.
Yeah, he's living that song out, isn't he?
But what's unfortunate about this is that there's really no clear motive, at least not that I could find in research. And just to be clear, like me and Jacob always say, we will not put anything in an episode that is not documented information. Could I have reached out to people and asked? Probably so. But if it's not documented information that is proven correct,
Right.
we're not going to talk about it because we're not here to speculate. We're here to give everybody facts.
Yeah, that's one thing that we do different than journalists is because journalists will go out there and interview people and put that out there, but we don't want to do that. We just want to say what happened, what led up to it, the event, and what happened afterwards. We keep it pretty clear. Do we know further details about a lot of cases we've covered? Sure, we know people, we hear stories, but if it's speculative, then we try to stray away from it, right? Unless we're trying to tell you guys theories that other people have, we might go into that kind of thing. But on a case like this, sure, we could have reached out to people that were around at the time, but does that really make our word law just because we went and found Joe Schmo from Malden and say, hey, what do you know?
Yeah, and this was 45 years ago. So, I mean, people's accounts can vary differently over time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many studies that show that witness accounts are just in the toilet anyway. I might remember one thing one day, and then a couple of years later, I might try to remember it, and I'm going to have a story that's a little bit different. And then the more I tell it, the story's going to get different and more different over time. So sometimes people aren't reliable. And so that's one thing we want to do is make sure if we say something, it's reliable.
And another thing, it's just so sad that a woman and her daughter lost their lives for essentially no reason.
Right.
Like I said, there's not really a clear motive. And instead of this guy just either not doing it or just taking himself out, he just calmly surrenders to the police. Like, so what was the point in even doing any of this?
Yeah, that's why I said about earlier is that there's two types of people, and this guy he went back to just being normal, and then whenever he talked about it in court, they said he doesn't seem like he's exhibiting any sort of remorse or any emotion at all. He's just kind of being, I don't know, just like a soulless douchebag that doesn't feel any way about what he did. He just says, yeah, I did this, and as if he's recounting his day, as opposed to accounting horrific murders of a mom and daughter.
And another thing, if you notice, I talked about how they emphasize about he smoked marijuana.
Yeah.
So back then, everyone thought that if you smoked marijuana, or back then they'd say dope, that you were just an evil person, which is totally not true. Like, I don't do it myself, but do I know a bunch of people that do it? Yeah, absolutely. It's legal in Missouri.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm just going to say this. I've never seen anybody that was high wanting to be a brutal killer. At least not high with marijuana. You mainly hear about that with drunks,
right,
or hardcore drug users.
Yeah, but back in the 1980s, it was just, that's what they did. Is like they said, if you smoked weed and listened to hair metal, then you're just if you guys don't know or have ever heard the term satanic panic, it happened in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, whenever mainstream music started to influence a lot of the younger generation, and the baby boomer parents got really freaked out, thinking that it was going to indoctrinate their children and make them satanic because they're listening to all these things and they're all smoking weed. And so they kind of generalized and said, if you do this, then you're just a part of the problem. And it's cases like this that people probably would point to and say, oh yeah, this is definitely a case of this guy's probably satanic because he smoked weed after chopping up some people with an axe, and he listened to devil music after he did it. But in reality, he's just a fucking prick. It's not that deep. Sometimes you can separate things from reality, and sometimes you're just an evil person. Sometimes smoking weed doesn't have anything to do with it. And like Hunter said, it is legal in Missouri. We know a lot of people that indulge. It's pretty easy to do whenever you can go home, and on your way home from Walmart, you pass by the dispensary, and so it's just the day and age we live in. But back then, it was just a lot different. And a quick side story, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but whenever Hunter said that they used to call weed dope back then, it's funny because I remember one of the first times whenever I was a kid, and whenever you're in high school, you might try some of the devil's lettuce. And I was at a party, and some girl's mom was there, and she's in her 50s, and I was probably 14 or 15, and she walked up to me and she said, "So you smoke dope?" And I was like, "Fuck no, I don't smoke dope." Like, I thought she was talking about, something a lot harder. And then she pulled out a joint, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll try." But it was just so funny that she said it that way, because to her, that's just what it was. But to me, I was like, I'm not about to do any meth or anything right now. Like, I'm not going down that road. But I mean, it's just the stigma back then probably is what people around here probably would like to associate with the cause of this murder, even though the root cause is that this guy is just an evil monster.
Yeah, what he did's definitely not Crime Daddy's approved by no means.
Not at all.
And I hate to give everybody the imagery of this, but when I was researching this, and then even when I just spoke about it out loud, I couldn't help but picture what happened inside my head. And Jesus, it's so brutal. Like, I don't know, it's just crazy. Like, I can't believe that happened, like, just a few minutes down the road from us.
Yeah, and Malden, like Hunter said, it's not really known for much crime. Like, a lot of the crime that they have is just small petty crime, maybe drugs every once in a while, nothing different than the rest of SEMO. But something like this is it's definitely an outlier. You don't hear about someone having an axe murder in this area, and the fact that it happened just a few miles down the road. You said what? It was back in like 1981?
1982.
82. So just 40 some odd years ago. So those people that are around then are.
I'm sorry, 1981.
So 1981, those people are still around, and it's just wild that happened, and he was just so about it. He just said, "Oh, here's the keys to the apartment. Here, take me in."
It'd be cool if you could go back and do the statistics of how many people smoked weed and listen to that, rock back then.
Yeah.
And then figure out how many of them became successful, how many of them became just normal people, and how many of them became scumbags. Because I bet that the ratio is definitely like more people turned out to be decent people than bad people.
Right. It reminds me of someone who worked at the school whenever I was in middle school. And whenever you went past his office, he was always listening to like Kiss or Metallica or AC/DC. And it was just like so badass, because he grew up in that time whenever that was the music that he played whenever he was this guy's age. And back then, if he would have been doing that, then people would have looked at him differently. And then here he was working at a school around children, but he was a stand-up dude in the community, and he's all fine, but he just likes his AC/DC. And then you have this other guy that likes AC/DC but murders somebody with an axe. It just shows you there's two sides to every coin, and it's not the music that determines the person.
But all right, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the way we told the story, but I hope you didn't enjoy that story, because that was terrible.
Yeah, I hope you didn't get any joy about hearing that, because me, personally, it makes me sick. Makes me sick to my stomach. And like we talked about before, some of the only ways that me and Hunter know how to get around tough stories and tough circumstances is by having some jokes in between to break up the sad stuff. I know that's how I coped with a lot of stuff growing up, because I lived a pretty shitty life and a lot of bad things happened around me. And so I was like, you know what? I might as well be happy about something. And so I was able to joke around it. And so we're not making light of the situation or the victims, and we'd like to remember them above all else.
So rest in peace, Janet Sue Johnson and her daughter, and our condolences go out to their families. And we hope that this never happens again. This crime itself, that I guess it's so brutal.
Yeah, it's the kind of one that's going to kind of sit with you and just make you think about things in general, about people you know, and how I guess you never really know anybody, right? You might think you know somebody, and not I'm not trying to fearmonger and make you scared of people, but it's like in the situation and in many other situations we cover on the podcast, a lot of the times the people that commit these crimes, you probably wouldn't think they would. And I'm sure at some point in their life it surprised somebody to hear that they did this. But Hunter, that's wild one, dude.
Yeah, I thought it was wild when I first came across it. Like, it blew my mind. Never heard of this in my entire life.
Yeah, I never heard of it before. I've heard of a few crimes in Malden, and some of them are just like shootings or something, and things that got solved pretty quick, and it's just over small disputes or something. But something like this sticks out. It's a little bit different, which is crazy to think that since it's so different, we didn't hear about it, you know. But again, it's just a victim of SEMO. We're notorious for just moving on instead of letting these stories be known, which is why me and Hunter like to do what we do. And we like that you guys enjoy what we do as well. And without you guys, we would be nowhere. So thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to all of us on all the platforms that you listen to us on.
Yes, thank you so much.
And if you guys ever are interested in finding all those platforms, they should all be linked at crimedaddies.riverside.com. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe. And whenever you subscribe, it costs you $0. We don't expect any money from you. And what that gets you is some behind the scenes exclusives whenever we give you the Crime Daddies Digest, which is our newsletter that we send out once a month, which just has updates, or it has special announcements that some of the listeners don't get until a week later. And then we do some case updates. So if we find out any other information about cases that we cover, we like to put some of that stuff out there as well. So if you want to go to our website and find us there, if you want to go ahead and just on the platforms that you listen to us on, go ahead and follow us or subscribe. And then if you can, leave us a review, 5 stars. Can't really explain it. We don't know how it works, but the algorithm loves engagement on ratings. And the more you guys give us ratings, the more you comment on these platforms, the more reach we get. And then the more reach we get, the bigger this community feels, and we can start covering more cases and just making the quality and the content as best as possible.
And again, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you for leaving reviews. Thank you for leaving a commented review. Jacob and I still can't get on there to respond back, but I want you to know we see it and we appreciate it.
We do. And it's awesome that you guys even take the time out of your day. Because not only do we take the time out of our day as busy dads and partners and employees to sit down and tell these stories, you guys take the time out of your day to listen to us and to comment and to do all these things. And so this relationship needs both sides. It needs us putting stuff out, and it needs you guys engaging with us. And it just makes us better, and it makes us more connected to you guys. So we appreciate you guys on that front. And if you want to go ahead and make sure you have your notifications turned on, because every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Central Time, you will get a brand new episode no matter what. That is the Crime Daddies guarantee. We will give you a new episode every week. I think we've been late one time, and it's because we were in Vegas and we were like a few hours behind on the time zones. So we were like an hour late on a drop, but that's it. You're going to get a new episode every Tuesday. So turn your notifications on and listen to us when we come out. And if you want to go ahead and engage with us on social media, you can find us on Facebook at Crime Daddies. And while you're there, in our pinned post, there should be a link to any merchandise you would like to pick up. We got 2 shirts on there, and every quarter we plan on dropping a brand new design. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Crime Daddies Pod. If you would like to go and follow our personal pages, you can find me at Facebook at Jacob Smith, and then you can search me up on TikTok and Instagram at Jacob W.C. Smith. And for Hunter,
On Facebook, I am Hunter Ben Frampton. On Instagram, I am hunter.semo. And on TikTok, I am semo_hunter.
So yeah, that's just our normal wrap up for you guys. I know if you guys are weekly listeners, you know kind of what we say at the end, but we appreciate you guys for listening. And honestly, the analytics show that you guys still listen to the end. About 95% of people that listened through the whole episode. And so we appreciate you guys for sticking around this long and not turning this off whenever we start to talk about all this stuff at the end. We appreciate you guys. And it's been a blessing to bring episodes to you guys week in and week out and build this community. But other than that, I'm going to pass it off to my boy Hunter.
Remember, everybody, listen to the crime, don't be the crime.
Yes, sir.